Hey guys, Trevor with Shadow Systems, Technical Tuesday. I want to talk about a potential risk factor or safety issue related to carrying and what happens to your top round, okay? What I'm specifically talking about is something that most people call setback, okay? And depending upon how you load your gun, there's going to be either one round in your stack or two rounds in your stack that every now and then you want to get rid of and replace with fresh ammo, okay? So let me show you exactly what I mean. If you take a round and you chamber it several times, okay? Let's draw the casing really quick. So you got the powder in the rear, and then there's like some amount of space, right? And then you have the projectile that lives inside the casing, okay? And what happens is there's neck tension and a crimp there that's holding the projectile in place, but as the gun gets chambered over and over again, it's very common for the round to get pushed, or the projectile to get pushed further and further back in the casing. And then this area right here, that gap, that little airspace, gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So what ends up happening is there's two risks that are created. One is more pressure, okay? If I have the same amount of powder occupying a smaller space, then the pressure is much higher, all right? That's one of the things that people who load rifles, if they're developing a load, they have to experiment with the powder charge if it's a longer round or a shorter round, because you can end up with pressure issues, okay? And then the other one is reliability. So, you know, the gun will tolerate a certain amount of variation in overall length, but not a ton. And I just want to now relate this to the two ways that people load and unload their guns if they carry every day. I'm going to call one person max capacity, okay? So the max capacity person, they'll load, let's say it's an MR, 15 plus 1 for a total of 16 rounds, okay? And then the standard capacity person, they'll just stick a mag in the gun with 15 in it, chamber around, and now they've got 15 basically plus 0. They've got 14 in the mag and 1 in the gun, okay? If you are a max capacity person, it's very common for 2 rounds to get damaged if you load and unload, ROU. And if you're a standard capacity person, it's usually 1 round. All right, let me show you what I mean. So I've got a CR920 magazine here, okay? It's partially loaded. Let's pretend it's a 15, okay? Let's pretend it's a 15. So if I'm the max capacity person, then, actually I need an extra round here. Then very frequently what I will do when I load my gun is I insert my magazine, chamber a round, I'll chamber check it, okay? And then I'll take that extra round, load it in the magazine, okay? Now I've got my full capacity, 13 in this case, plus 1. So now it's the end of the day. And what do? If I want to unload my gun, as many people do, I remove the magazine, I take the round out, right? So what just happened? This round is an extra. I've still got my 13, right? So the next day, this is the round that was chambered last time. The next day, I take my magazine, still got 15 in it, I load it. Okay, now number 2 round just got chambered, and then this round that was in the chamber yesterday goes back in the magazine. The 2 rounds, the top 2 rounds just alternated. This is what happens. Next day I come back, I unload that round, right? And then the next day I load the magazine, right? Chamber it. And now the round that was in the chamber last time is the top round in the magazine. And this is what people do. And those top 2 rounds get chambered every other day. And that's what happens. And so those top 2 rounds are very frequently going to start to get set back. And what you can do, if you really are worried about it and want to pay attention, go spend 29 bucks and get a cheap pair of calipers on Amazon. And this is not a cheap pair, but you can use these to measure a fresh factory round. And then every now and then just check your carry rounds and see if they're getting set back, okay? You also will see a lot of damage to the rims usually, and that's another reason to take those 2 rounds and junk them. So I just want to make that point. If you're the max capacity person, usually there's 2 rounds in your magazine that are getting damaged if you unload and load every day. If you're just a standard capacity person, I load 13, full magazine, okay? Chamber, and I'm off to the range or whatever, or I'm carrying for the day. Now I take my round out that was in that gun, and I load it back in the top of the magazine. Which, by the way, this one's pretty set back, and that's why it did that. So we'll show you some pictures of these dummy rounds, actually, because I want you to see what setback looks like. They've been chambered 1 billion times in 1 billion guns, and a lot of them are starting to get set back. and you'll see that what that round looked like here in a couple pictures. All right, so that's basically the message. If you are a max capacity person and you unload every day, you probably have 2 rounds that are at risk for setback, which results in more pressure and the reliability issue that you just saw. And if you are a standard capacity person, you probably just take that same top round and load it every day if you're unloading at the end of the day, and you have 1 round that you probably want to keep an eye on. If you have, and by the way, realize that the change in length, you may not see it visually, okay? So maybe it's just a good practice to once a month chuck that round and replace it, or grab some calipers, take some measurements. Calipers are also great too to just kind of like look at other things. You can actually learn a lot about a gun or dimensions or how things fit if you really want to with a set of calipers. We use them all the time. All right? Hope that was helpful. I know it's kind of a silly thing to worry so much about or get so detailed on, but we have just seen it enough times, and the pressure thing is a real problem, well established. So keep an eye on your top round or top 2 rounds, and we'll see you next time.